kids called summer, my father called canning season. His laugh used to shake his gut as me and my brothers bottled fruit for storage. I saw the world through my father's eyes. But one evening, he came in from our junkyard and counted the jars. He said it's not enough because the feds surrounded a family not far from here. They wouldn't let the government brainwash their kids in public schools. And they shot the father. Next time, it could be us. I'd never seen my dad cry. Soon after, he bought a machine to manufacture bullets. He thought this was all right because it undermined the government. I knew people could go crazy. But the notion that my dad could be functional, lucid, and something could still be wrong, I had to escape. James Dean once said, "You're tearing me apart." Well, actually, he screamed it. While we often associate mental instability with teenagers, mental illness affects ages long past puberty and impacts how families function. Nature, September 22nd, 2020, reports that growing up in a family with mental health problems creates a traumatic childhood experience, which can lead to socioeconomic and health impairments, including unemployment, lower income, and obesity. There is an urgent need to spread awareness for families affected by mental health so we can stop families, parents, children, and adult children alike from being torn apart from the inside out. Educated by Tara Westover. Dad said, "Those not preparing for the end of the world were agents of the Illuminati," whatever that was. Once, Dad even waved his Bible and explained the sinfulness of milk. Then his cousin said, no righteous God would deprive a man of ice cream. But there was rarely a person, even at church, that Dad hadn't called a Gentile. So when my brother announced he was leaving for college, everyone looked at Dad. He said, college professors are on the devil's payroll. And to me, he said, a woman's place was in the home, not whoring after man's knowledge instead of God's. So, with my brother gone, the rest of us were promoted in the junkyard. I never saw my dad carry anything. He just chucked it. One time, a spike of iron pierced my leg. And when he saw the blood, he said I was slow as molasses. I told myself, I'm only crying from the pain, not anything else. I limped home to the bathroom and found a bruise the size of a human head. I stared at the girl in the mirror, and drops slid down her face. I had misunderstood the truth, that it's not affecting me. But that was its effect. I wanted to get away from the junkyard, so one evening I blurted out, I want to go to college. He picked up his Bible and spoke. You remember Jacob and Esau? It meant I was not the daughter he had raised. I might have resented my upbringing, but at college, I clung to every doctrine from my dad. My first roommate arrived wearing spaghetti straps, and written across her rear the word juicy. I avoided women dressed this way, as if their immorality might be catching. Plus, another roommate casually unpacked milk, a violation of the Lord's commandments. But the real trouble became my college classes. Homeschooling had been a commandment from the Lord, but Dad thought we should learn skills for the end of the world, like Morse code. So in my Western Civ class, when I came to a word in the book, Holocaust. I asked the professor, what does it mean? I had a vague knowledge Jews had been killed, but I'd been taught a dozen people, not 6 million. I felt the weight of everyone's eyes, and I didn't raise my hand again. I'm not sure whether I was in shock of learning about 6 million camps, gas chambers, or learning about my own ignorance. But I began to understand that my life was narrated for me. We were ignorant. My world had been turned upside down, and I wondered my place in it. Dad said education had made me uppity. I tried to remember his laugh that would shake his gut. I was sitting in psychology class when I first heard the term bipolar disorder, the symptoms, persecution, paranoia. It described Dad, machine to manufacture bullets, the government brainwashing kids. So I wrote my paper on the effect bipolar parents have on their children. It was accusative, brutal. My professor said it was one of the best essays he'd read in years. I wanted to believe him, but a voice had been with me, whispering I was not right. Unnatural. Sometimes it was my father's voice. Often it was my own. That weekend, I returned home. The shame I'd long felt about my family was now suffocated by rage. For the first time in my life, Dad and I got into an argument. Dad shouted, "You have been taken by Lucifer!" I was shaking. Why did you terrify us like that? Why did you fight so hard against made-up monsters, but do nothing about your own? My words didn't come out as words, but as choking, sputtering sobs. So I ran to the bathroom. I stared at the girl in the mirror, scolding her for every tear, while my father plotted how to reconvert me. I plotted how to let him, even if it meant an exorcism, blame the devil. I imagined how esteemed I would be as a cleansed vessel, how loved. I left the bathroom. If I accepted this blessing, my dad would lay his hand on my head and cast out the evil things I had said. But I couldn't remember the way my dad's laugh used to shake his gut. So I heard myself say, "No." Dad looked at me in disbelief. Until that night, in the mirror, that child from the junkyard had always been there. But now, she didn't answer. The decision I made is not one she would have made. I cut my father from my life because it was the only way I could love him.